So, you're thinking about playing Tamarak Trail? Here's what you need to know. Tamarak Trail, not to be confused with the real Tamarak Trail in Alberta, Canada, named after larch trees, is a deck builder roguelike but replace the cards with customizable dice. You fight your way through a twisted, ever-changing trail as a member from the secret society, the Sturgeon Lodge. Said trail was legit nuked from space and turned the creatures you know and love into knife-wielding, gun-shooting monsters. Oh, and there's ghosts, too. How does the game play? It's rough starting off. I mean that as in both challenging and a bit, well, I'll get to it. Since it's a roguelike, when you die, you restart all over again. Each time you do die, however, you unlock new and exciting abilities that you may find in your next travels from loot that enemies drop. You can also upgrade your lodge to help you start off stronger. I mean, eventually, but whoo boy, those prices are steep. In the game, you progress, unlock abilities to upgrade your dice, find items to power them up by shoving it inside the unfolded dice. You earn gold, but the prized item that you want to collect are called Garmonbosia. This is what you need to upgrade the lodge. So how do you get it? By defeating the boss icons on the map as you progress. Sounds easy, but it's not always a guarantee you'll get one each run. Sometimes you're saddled with shit loot and even shittier pathways that yield very little that could help you. Although you can just abandon the trail with no penalties. That said, I recommend the lodge upgrade Sturgeon Pond, so at least when you fail, you get a participation prize of 1 Garmonbosia. It only costs 5 of them, so it's doable. As for the trail itself, it is entirely randomized. You have fights, come across events, which can go really well, really bad, or nothing happens at all. You got shops, resting points, treasure, and eventually puzzle locations once you unlock them. Yeah, at the lodge. But enough about the trail. Let's get on to the main selling point of the game, the combat and its custom dice. On your character, there are a few numbers that don't make too much sense to a seasoned RPG player. So let me break it down. The leftmost number is the amount of resolve you gain every round. This can be higher if you don't use all of your dice, or lowered by debuffs. Resolve is the golden bar below your player that is both their HP and your ability pool. For example, the attack die needs 2 resolve to use against the enemy. It will take away from this bar. It's a bit of a balancing act of, do I want to stay alive and take more hits, or deal a bunch of damage and hope they don't hit me in return? The last number on the right is your shield. There are dice that add to it, and it will take off damage first before it impacts your resolve. I got into the habit of having one die as the attack die, and the other one as the defense die. There are also character-specific abilities, re-rolls, and auto-roll, because after a few shit tosses using a mouse, you'll just opt for the auto-roll. Now, see those little anatomically correct hearts above your resolve bar? Those deplete each time you are hit when your resolve is 0, or if the attack delivers more damage than the remaining amount of resolve. When those go away, you die. Enemies have this exact same setup as your character, so everything I said previously applies to them as well. On to the dice now, which is great fun customizing. You unlock new abilities after defeating monsters or buying from the shop. They all have what they do displayed, some with additional instructions such as flipping to another side immediately after being used. You can make infinite combos this way, which are fun, but boy do they drain that resolve quick. Another thing that devours resolve is when you bounce dice. The little explosion-looking icon above them indicates how many bounces they had, with each bounce adding to the resolve cost amount. Some unlock additional abilities that lay waste to enemies. For some, it's just an annoying cost increase. As mentioned before, there are debuffs, but also buffs and abilities you can add while in combat. These generally affect the strength of attacks by either adding or subtracting a percentage of the damage. Also, some dice abilities ping off certain buffs, such as backstab. If you have stealth activated on yourself, it will add the debuff exposed to the enemy automatically when used. There's lots to play with, but it takes time to find the abilities and play around with them. The sounds in the game are on point, with hard hits that feel like they do damage, creatures hissing and crying out. The dice are very dicey. However, the music is lacking. I think all of the music focus went on the main menu screen. The lack of heart-pumping excitement you get from the all-important battle theme is just sad. You get tired of the same dreary music that, yes, the trail is dark and depressing and full of mystery, but that all the time? No thanks. It was a breath of fresh air when I encountered the shop for the first time. It was visually interesting and had a birdman playing the saxophone using holes in their own beak. I loved it. Tamarak Trail is a charming game. You can see the love and care put into the visuals and the dice customization. It definitely changes and encourages another playthrough. But everything in the game, you have to slowly earn it as you progress. Like any roguelikes out there, there's a lot of experimenting what works well and what doesn't. Learning the mechanics and not just going for the thing that hits the hardest takes a bit of time. And even if you have figured it out, you might just have some bad luck. But if you start to understand all of the mechanics it has to offer, you'll start to progress faster and faster. I would recommend Tamarak Trail as, despite the difficulty at times and downright unhelpful loot, I kept finding myself coming back to try and get a bit further. So it succeeded in that regard. It definitely needs some polish on certain aspects to attract those who might lose interest in repeat failed attempts. And maybe your own battle playlist at your fingertips would spice up things a bit.
I want all my Darmandosia.